Okay, we're gonna get started now. Let me get us going. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the fourth Paparelli Zoom chat for entrepreneurs. Thanks for coming to share and to serve each other. Today is day 30 of the United States being in isolation or shutdown. There's 17 million people that are unemployed. The economy restart discussions are in the very early stages. And we know this, it won't just turn back on. This Paparelli Zoom chat is an interactive forum for entrepreneurs to discuss their issues and opportunities and share their views with each other and their decisions. So we're really coming together to actually learn from each other, because by learning from each other, we think this collective wisdom will actually make us stronger. Just a few house rules. Right now, I'm going to mute everyone. Okay. So if you are going to speak, remember to unmute yourself and then remute yourself when you're finished. Secondly is I prefer that you be on video. It's more engaging for all of us rather than just hearing someone talk to a blank screen. But if it doesn't work for you, then I understand, and I'm happy that you will continue to join us. There is for those of you new to Zoom, there's a gallery view for all of the speakers, which you'll find in the top right-hand corner of your screen. You can click on that and see all of the people on the call. And then lastly, I encourage you all to use the Zoom chat feature. Do you see it down there at the bottom? You can submit questions this way while we try to keep this conversation and dialogue going. And Sean, I'd appreciate if you might help me with this, and that if you can just kind of keep an eye on the chat room there. And if a question relevant, I'd say, to our discussion comes up, at a good break, maybe say, there is a pretty good question here. I find I can't watch the Zoom chat and pay attention to the person I'm talking to. So
Will do, Charlie.
I appreciate that. And today we're going to be talking about our customers. And as you know, I always bring something from the Bible here. And here's a thought for you right from the Word of God on this topic. And it comes, and it says, "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." And that comes out of the book of Mark, chapter 10, verse 51. So what do you want me to do for you? I've been encouraging you as leaders. I've been encouraging you as leaders to stay as close as possible to your customer. If the customer, this is pretty simple stuff, and I deal with startups all my life. If the customer is buying, we have a business. And if they're not, then we don't. It's that simple. So it's normal, though, as we grow our business, and we've been through an expansion here, to move further and further away from the customer, because there's so much else that we need to do in the business, and bringing people on and training them and putting that next level of management in place that is going to serve the customer. But I believe in this seriously flawed or crazy economy that we're in the midst of here, that we have to return, you have to return to startup mode. You have to get back to basics. When you started your company, you began by talking to customers. You listened, you learned, and you sold, and you served. You listened, you learned, you sold, and you served. And that's what we need to get back to. This COVID-19 has changed everything. Everything. Well, now I find that the businesses I talk to are in one of three situations. The absolute worst case situation, and we're seeing this sort of with the cruise industries and airlines, also with startups that I know that are serving the sports industry and entertainment industry somewhat. Their market basically has virtually disappeared overnight. There's no longer a need for what they offer. So those people in the worst case have to find a new customer to serve. The best case situation, on the other hand, are you just happen to be in the right place at the right time. Your customers need you more than they ever did before. So count your lucky stars here. You take orders, raise capital if you can during this time. And I find that angels are interested in companies that are exploding, and then ship, ship, ship. That's best case. The most likely, which is where I find that most of us, is the need of the customers change. There's still a real need there, but do you know what it is? Do you know who has it within your customer? And are you guessing, or can you actually ask? Again, maybe use the words of Jesus when you're talking to a customer that just says, what do you want me to do for you? They already know you. So today we're going to discuss our customer interactions. One, here's our outline that we'll be discussing around. One is, how are you communicating with your customers? Other entrepreneurs want to know this. You know, we're getting stuff from God knows everybody that is the COVID-19 email that starts out with, we hope first and foremost you and your family are safe. And then it goes on, and I don't know the reason for the email. These are people that I've done business with over the years. One guy said, yeah, I bought shoes from somebody, 2 years ago, and all of a sudden I'm getting this COVID-19 email. So how are you communicating with your customers? And secondly, what are you trying to achieve in this communication? And then lastly, what are you learning? And this is going to be important to all of us. What are we learning from these customers? So share what you're doing, get feedback, and get some good ideas. To help me with this, I asked one of the entrepreneurs that I haven't actually invested in. His name is Michael Pink. And Michael has founded a company called Smart PM, and PM stands for Project Management. And I invested because I admired Mike Pink when I first met him. He's a straight talker. He's really bright. He knows his market, and he addressed a real need in his market, and he knew it at sort of a seminal level. So Mike's going to, and I know that Mike is, I've seen what he's doing in talking to customers, and I asked him to kind of share with us what he's doing and help us on this call to kick us off. So Mike, what I'm asking you to do is address those three questions really in the discussion here. Is how are you communicating with your customer? What are you trying to achieve, and what are you learning in all this? So Mike, give a little background, if you will, to the people on the call, and then kind of launch into your answers to those three questions.
Sure. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks for including me today, and thanks for asking me to talk a little bit about what we're doing. A little bit of background on our business and our company. We built a technology for the construction industry to essentially make sense of their data on their projects. Prior to forming this business, that's what I did. I was a guy who was hired quite often by people involved in large commercial construction projects who were arguing over money and time, and figuring, helping them understand, well, what does the data say? Where did the money go? Where did the time go? And ultimately, who's responsible? So through that, I learned very deeply the analytics of construction, how I can use that to help people avoid those problems of disputes. And that's what we created. And this actual situation, I feel one of the more fortunate ones, because there's never been a time in the world that the entire construction industry has been impacted the way that it is today. So I sort of looked at that as, there's a unique opportunity here that makes us very, very, very relevant to the people right now. They need to understand their projects. Nobody wants to go to disputes. But that
you're thinking you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I feel like that this is a big wake-up call for our customers, the wake-up call we've been trying to give them for years. But this sort of opens their eyes a little bit to why were we telling them these things?
Just a second, Mike, and I'll be interrupted a little bit to just make an observation. And this is really for other people. But just to say, I've heard through other recessions and things when I've dealt with entrepreneurs over all these years, is that we're great at rationalizing things too. All right. Yeah. So every entrepreneur that I've talked to has pretty much said, I'm in the right place at the right time. Okay. Just be careful of having to look at this. That's why I say get close to the customer and you'll know pretty quick whether you are or not. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So that being said, it didn't stop us from making sure that or at least attempting to make sure that our intuition was correct. So we have basically for the last 4 weeks essentially directed everybody in the organization who has any interfacing with any customers to call them and not try to sell them anything, but try to understand what they're going through. And then use that information to help recraft our plan going forward. So customer success, both guys in our customer success group has basically touched base with every customer we have, and multiple people in each organization with the idea that we're going to figure out what's going on in their minds. What are they thinking about? How are they feeling? Are they even thinking about construction right now? Are they thinking about their family? We really wanted to understand, if we can collect a lot of good data across different segments, different customer types, that would ultimately give us an idea of where they're at right now from a business perspective, and whether or not we need to start adjusting our plan going forward. What that ultimately resulted in is us realizing that nobody
You just been hacked. I'm gonna get rid of this guy.
What was that?
That's funny.
You just got hacked. Okay.
Wow, that was crazy.
Good recovery, Charlie.
What's that?
Good recovery. He's back.
He's
Hey,
back.
Charlie, I think you can get rid of him.
Tell me
Yeah,
how.
there's
I
a
think
new
there's
feature.
yeah.
It says stop participant sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Mike, are you there?
Yes.
You,
I'm
you
here.
should be able to
What should I
Okay.
be able to do if that comes back?
kick him off, Charlie.
You got to kick him off, Charlie.
You got to kick him completely off. Yeah, he's on.
Well, I did. I said stop participant
No.
sharing. Is that the thing, the option?
No, you got to knock him off.
Okay. But anyway, Mike, where we were is you were talking to your staff and yourself.
Начальника, это я!
What do you do?
Она делала шамшу. Что-то делала. Не рука делала, тёлка делала. Видишь, какая тёлка.
Hey, Charlie, go to your participants.
Включили мана тёлка танцевала, гашиша мана курили мана. Видишь, как раз раскували мана. Начальники приходили мана, очень ругала мана. Почему придурка мана ничего не делала мана?
Hey, Charlie.
Папка на мне, папа заехала, я ему говорила, стоп, начальники, больше не надо так делать, меня слушай, теперь припева мой самый лучший. Начальники, говно, ремонт, здесь, мой девка, какула, только, роки вина, говно.
I think I got him. You still
All right.
there? I think I got him.
All right.
Yeah.
He's still in here. But he's muted. Now he's unmuted again. Oh, there, maybe he just went.
When I removed him, he keeps coming back in. So I guess I got to keep an eye out for him. So go ahead.
Sure.
Now we have experienced firsthand the security issues. Right?
Yeah. As I was saying, so yeah, we wanted to basically understand the mindsets of our customer base, both through the sales team, through, my contacts and our clients. At the end of it all, we realized that none of our clients are really thinking much about what we're doing or buying software right now. Even the people that were in our near-term pipeline, You know, their decisions are going to be pushed off for a while, and we accepted that. But we did also say, you know, we want to help. That is a very important thing here. So instead of sending, you know, the run-of-the-mill CEO letter, we decided, and back up for a second, we also realized that they're all scared. They don't know what to do. They're nervous about the industry. They're nervous about their jobs. They're nervous about their projects. They're nervous about everything. But they're not necessarily thinking about buying technology right now. So what did that tell us? That we wanted to do whatever we could to help.
But you learned something else too, Michael, is you segmented your market. You have enterprise customers you're talking to, and then
Oh,
you're
yeah.
talking about smaller customers. Speak to that for just a second. That was really interesting.
Yeah, sure. We did segment our, the industry's a big one, as everybody knows, construction, and there's a lot of different players involved. You know, there's large government organizations, there's large contractors, there's small contractors, there's developers, there's Fortune 1000 companies, and then there's insurance companies and consultants. So we've segmented the market, and we definitely wanted to understand the mindsets of each segment because, you know, in terms of knowing that there's that many segments, we always have to know where to focus our efforts and why. The segment focus has changed because of different reasons. The middle market was our number one focus point up until now because they are always in the biggest pain and they have the least dollars to spend on consultants, which is what makes us a good solution for them to give them the analytical capabilities they need to minimize their risk without the $300 per hour rates. The larger organizations, the corporate organizations, the government organizations, my daughter's looking at me through the window. Those larger organizations had so much red tape that it wasn't worth our time. And every time we entered into one of these organizations, it took 6 to 12 months to even get them to move the ball to some sort of place that was positive. But that's all changed. The smaller companies right now, they're all in wait and see mode. They're not spending a dollar on anything because every decision's a big decision. And then the larger organizations have now changed their tune to knowing that they need to invest in better project controls, and they don't care about the red tape because we're in a crisis situation. So now that's helped us better understand where to focus right now. It plays into our business much better, but it also, we needed to understand that because we have a 12-person team. We've got a couple sales
So
people.
these guys, so you're saying the bigger organizations that were 6 to 12 months now, they're turning into sort of to 30, 60-day type
Yeah, we closed our
contact to
first,
close?
we closed our biggest client ever in the last 30 days yesterday. So
Well, that's a big change for you. That's what you've learned from talking to these people.
right, that's absolutely what we learned. It was learning
What
that
do you learn when you talk to the smaller corporations, the smaller companies, where you're getting right to the owner in a lot of cases, right? Who is the decision maker? You're saying they're scared. They're saying, you told me that they're saying, hey, I got to see what's going on over here. I got to find out first before I spend $10,000 on anything.
Right.
All right. So
Yeah.
they're just saying, I'm going to wait and see. You know, is there anything that you've learned from them beyond they're just scared and they're wait and see? Have you learned, you know, kind of where they are spending money, what they are spending money on, if you will?
Well, what we've learned is they're not really spending money on much. They're just trying to figure out, you know, how to move their projects forward or deciding whether or not just to stop them outright. And really the other thing that's playing into this is there's a lot of disconnect across the organization so that, you know, nobody wants to pull the trigger on any decision without making sure that everybody's discussed it and that, you know, budgets have been discussed and recentered based on the situation. And nobody in those organizations are really at any place to rethink through their budget because nobody really knows how long this is going to be. So they have to be in a wait and see mode with purchasing any technology other than, you know, things that are an absolute must have today. You know, for example, you know, Zoom or GoToMeeting, if they didn't already have that. I mean, they absolutely had to have a conference technology because they're all working from home. So those are the decisions that they can make. But anything that's you know, not an absolute must-have in this crisis today. They're waiting on for as long as they can. Not to mention,
So
a lot.
but you're thrown into that bucket of not being an absolute must-have during this crisis.
I would say that we're thrown in the bucket of an absolute not need to have for the first couple months until they understand a little bit more.
I love you, man. That's
Yeah.
great. What's the one? I'm going to end with this, and then we'll open this up to some others to share. But what's the one thing, if you think, what's the one thing that? So what you did is, first, let me just recount, is you're calling customers to try to understand what they are going through and how they're thinking. What are they thinking about, right? Based on that, you're saying, all right, how should we change or recraft our plan going forward? Okay, our communication plan. That's what I heard from you. So what's the one thing, if you said, I'm going to just share this with everybody, it's sort of my big aha, this pearl of wisdom that says, man, this is something I learned I didn't expect.
I think the number one thing that I learned here was that we decided that we're not going to sell. People aren't ready to buy right now. We know that they'll need our tool eventually, given the circumstances, and we feel very strongly about that. But the number one thing that I found here was we got a lot more appreciation for taking off our salesman caps and putting on our, let's help you any way we can caps. And basically we started giving them direction, my former consultancies and my former understanding of what these people need and what they're telling me they need. And I have a background that can help. A lot of that background helped us build a product, but nonetheless, I have a background that if I was working at their company, I would come in with a plan and I would do these things. So I started putting together a lot of that. If I'm in your shoes, you're a contractor, you're working on these projects, this is happening. What are the immediate things that I know you should be doing right now, unrelated to my software, and how can I help?
That's good.
So
And I saw that.
We started sorry.
Yeah, what you did is Mike put together I'd call it a white paper, which was a very, very high value. What was it, about 5 pages?
Yeah, we've done
with
3
very detailed steps. I mean, Mike, the consultant, showed up. The Deloitte consultant showed up and said, here's what you do. And I want to contrast that to something I received from somebody else. It's in managed services. And it was a note that said, hey, just a blast that said, in these difficult times, we'll give 2 hours of services to anybody. It's like, well, what? So I have to decide if I need this guy. 2 hours, I'm not going to think about it. But you came back and said specifically, I know what you're going through. Here's what you need to be thinking about right now in dealing as a contractor with an owner or an owner with a contractor. And that was brilliant. So that's the difference in that communication. So
yeah, and it's been what we put together has been downloaded several thousand times. We've gotten a lot of good press. We've gotten a lot of bigger companies asking us to join webinars with them to talk about these things and obviously discuss how, what we do as well. So yeah,
it shows that how well that document really showed how well you understand your buyer. You do. I mean, you understand him like to a T. And that gives you great credibility and great positioning for this. But one disturbing thing that you said is we decided that we're not going to sell.
Well, actively sell like a salesman.
Okay. All right.
Like, hey,
right.
want to buy? No, we're
Right.
I would
well,
say
as an investor, that kind of perked my ears up a little bit. I just wanted to know.
It's a different approach to selling. I think
I think what you're doing is Mike went through Flashpoint, by the way, which is an accelerator. And what you're saying is we're going back to customers. You're just like you did at Flashpoint.
Oh yeah.
You're asking those questions again, which is customer discovery in effect, saying, so what is going on and what are your processes and what's your priorities and how is this going to work? I mean, that's what you're doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, pretty cool. So that you can recraft your plan going forward. I love that. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mike.
No problem. Thanks for asking.
Who else do we have?
Hey, Mike, would you mind posting a link to that white paper in the Zoom group chat, just so we can see how you crafted it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
I gotta find that link, but let me go chase it down.
Hey, Charlie, I'll go.
Who is it? Dave.
Dave Klepp.
Yeah.
I'm with J&L RPM. We serve the manufacturing sector with efficiency, robotics, automation, monitoring, control solutions. So we're fortunate to be in that segment that your article mentioned as being reshuffled probably higher towards the deck, maybe not on top. And what we believe is this is an unprecedented time to get market share or to get mind share, which will eventually result in market share, because even though a lot of people aren't moving forward on projects, they've got time on their hands that they didn't have before to consider new solutions. And that's what a lot of these new startups or early stage companies that are on this call are trying to bring change to the market. So I think it's an unprecedented time to bring mind share in our customer and prospect base. And I think there's a lot of pivoting that needs to go on in almost every company, even though we were pretty directly shuffled toward the top of the deck. We still need to refine and pivot, and this is a good time to do that.
How are you? Tell me,
Michael
Dave,
mentioned.
Dave, tell me, I like the idea that you say it's an unprecedented time to get mind share because people have time. So they are sitting in front of their computers here and not interacting in meetings and having walk-ins and water cooler discussions and things. So how, if they're not distracted, so how are you communicating?
So obviously
That's
the
your
first
sort of
thing
why,
that-
if you will. This is why we're doing it. So how are you communicating?
So I think the first step is, like Michael mentioned, is you have to acknowledge reality and realize that your customer may need something different. So we're connecting with them on that basis, and going back to square one or two, where we're talking about how have your needs shuffled, what else can we do, what can we do differently to help you better, and then working on that, and so that we have a more refined solution going forward, so that we can, when decisions do start being made, that we're A, connected, and B, having more refined solution.
Well, let me ask you this, Dave. When you ask them, what can we do to help you better? Okay. Do they actually give you an answer, or do they go, well, I don't know?
All depends on the client. A lot of them are still trying to figure out which way is up, and some of them are starting to come out of that. But the dialogue in the past, I've heard things like, "Hey, we're just so busy bringing the wheelbarrow full of cash from the front door customers to the back door expenses. We don't have time to worry about the stack of $100,000 bills that are falling off the wheelbarrow. We got to keep that wheelbarrow going. We got to keep that engine going. And we just don't have time to look at more efficient things." And now operations in a lot of companies is either got the time, or they're processing the glut of the backlog, and they're gonna have the time. So we think this is a perfect time to talk to them about being more efficient.
Well, what have you, so to close this out, what have you learned from all this communication that you've done?
So probably the biggest thing is that, I think, like Michael said again, rather than staying stuck in our sales mode, we needed to kind of rethink, hey, everything has shuffled, everything has pivoted. We need to do that too, and we need to be more flexible and say, okay, yeah, we'll go back and step a little bit into R&D and tweak some things, pivot some things, enhance some things, so that and figure out where we need to pivot them and target them, so that we're coming out of this thing in a better spot than
You mean
than a worse spot.
based on your ideas or what you're hearing from the customer?
What we're hearing from customers.
Okay, so they're telling you things now that you didn't hear before. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Any, Anybody else? Thank you. I appreciate it, Dave. Thanks for sharing. What else we got? Do we have, where's Jason? He's in a construction rental business there. Jason, I know that you've been thinking about this stuff. You're a smart guy. What do you got going on?
Yeah, Jason Perez, CEO of
Yeah.
Yards. I think last time I explained what we do is it's essentially, 30 years ago, if you went to go book a airline ticket or something, you wouldn't be able to do it online, right? And
You there?
if the internet went out, contractors still book rental equipment in the old-fashioned pick up the phone book, or look for the name in your cell
Yeah.
phone and call them, right? So our system facilitates the life cycle of a rental from start to finish, taking about 10 seconds of time instead of an hour of calling and getting quotes and so on and so forth. And then it manages that asset all the way through the life cycle. So one of the things that we have great advisors around us, right? And I think surrounding yourself with good counsel is, one of the most important things you can do before stages. You're prepared.
Breaking
So,
up a little bit, Jason. I'm wondering if you might want to kill your video and talk. It might give you a little bit more
let me
bandwidth.
try that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me try that. If not, I can call in on the cell phone.
No, we're good. Go ahead.
All right. So
How are you communicating if you get to that kind of gut?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a great book called Traction, and it says, hey, you focus 50% of your time on sales and 50% of your time on product, right, as a startup. And so what we looked at,
No, we lost you.
we said, well, putting 50% of our time, it doesn't make as much sense as it used to, because every hour that I spend in sales, I'm going to have less traction than an hour that I spend on product. And so our discussions changed when it came to, I love the idea of, getting mind space or mind equity. I can't remember what the words that Dave used, but really that's what you're trying to do. And so our discussions with our customers went from, hey, look at our product, we're moving into, we're trying to offer some efficiency, and also, hey, we know that your time is scarce right now, and so we've had a roadmap that we've been developing, and there's been some communication back from you saying these are the important points, but are they really important? Are they nice to haves or are they must to haves? And so our communication really started becoming focused on product and back to that customer discovery. And I think that's one thing that Michael and both Dave said. You're really going back to your basics and going, okay, what are the most important points to what I'm trying to sell? And how do I get my customer to
Right. You're breaking up a little bit, Jason, so it's getting to be
communicate that
tough to
to
kind
me,
of follow
right?
you. But I think
What are
that-
you still doing manually?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so going back into this customer discovery mode, okay, as you're breaking up a little bit is what I was telling you.
No,
You're still
I
breaking up.
apologize.
Yeah, so it's hard to kind of follow you on this thing, but I hear you saying that, you're asking people what's important to you now, and probably all the questions around that, because in a lot of cases, people don't know until you get into a general discussion about it, which is the customer discovery process. So I appreciate what you're doing. So what is it, if I don't know if we can try one time to hear you, maybe you can edit out as to what are you learning? And then we'll kind of move on. And if you break up again, I'll cut you off. All right, go ahead.
I will speak slowly.
Yeah, go ahead.
What we're really learning, we've made a decision to really be focused on asking strategic questions to the enterprise user. And so what we're learning now are gaps in the behavior that we had within our system, right? So we have a workflow that we've
Went away again.
been matching to behavior. How do they actually do step-by-step business? Does that make sense? Hopefully I didn't break up too much.
It does. Yeah, I caught most of it. And I think what we're hearing though is you're gaining clarity on the customer process. And I'm sure that you're finding the same thing that Michael Pink is, being in the same industry, that there's a difference between the buyers at the low end, the smaller buyers, and the buyers at the enterprise buyers at the high end. That has to be happening. There's got to be a consistency there. So that's a big aha. Anybody else? Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. What else we got? Come on. Somebody else is talking to customers here. Jump in for me.
Hey, Charlie, it's John Wickman.
Yeah.
I would say that in the customer conversations we've had, there's obviously a lot of distraction. We're talking to them about the thinking.
What is it you do, John? A little bit, just to give us a little context.
Sure. So Petition is a platform that is designed to help companies really in two ways. One, it provides more visibility to their office space in terms of how they have laid it out and really seat availability. And then the second part is really around the HR technology employee engagement side, where we provide employees with a visual map of the office, along with information and pictures about the people who sit around them and on different floors to really help or work towards helping improve employee engagement and then accelerate onboarding.
Oh, it seemed to me to be you'd be a pretty hot commodity right now as people are thinking about coming back to work.
Yeah, and that's an area we're really focusing on pretty heavily.
Can you spell the name of your company?
Sure, MAPTICIAN.
MATTI.
I can put it in the chat, Charlie, here.
Okay, that'd be good. Yeah, because I can't understand it when you say it. Then we'll know. Ah, no wonder. It's a made-up word. Okay. All right. All right. You got the URL.
Yeah, and so it's been good. You know, Ronnie Cannon, who's also on the call, you know, he's been a great thought partner throughout the process, and he's continued to do that. And we've been able to help some of his clients. So the get back to work topic is obviously a top of mind one. We've been reading a lot about it, thinking a lot about it, and actually have started about 2 weeks ago, started the acceleration of some development specifically designed to help companies get back to work in an organized fashion, in which they can, using a visual approach, essentially close out certain seats within their floor plan so that they can achieve that distancing, some measurement elements there to help know how much distancing they've created.
Well, John, tell me this. Are you making these changes that you're making to the system, your software? Are these changes are coming based on observations, data, real data, or are these assumptions that you're making on what it's going to look like when they get back? Are your customers telling you this information?
Yes, yes, Charlie. Although, you know, we weren't able to really wait until we had all the data to start. We sort of got a sense of things, and you know, it wasn't that we were so specific in how we were approaching our development. There were some underlying foundational elements we needed to just create. We were going to create anyway, but they really.
How are you involving the customer in the process?
So we're talking with them. We've talked with a number of them about, well, hey, you know, how are you planning on getting back? Are you planning on doing a staged, or are you planning on going back all at once? And if you are planning on doing staged, does keeping people separated during this initial first 30, 60 days, is that important to you? And obviously our customers, since they're using our software, could do that already with the software. We're just really trying to make it easier and package it, you know, a little bit better, obviously for them and then for others, so that process can be done where you get on a staggered schedule where half your team works.
Well, it's in effect what you're doing is because of COVID-19 and this we all left work and now we're all coming back to work, is you're going from this, hey, isn't it great that you have a sense where everybody is in the office and it builds community and all that, to look, here's how it's a repositioning of the product. Now you are the solution to design your office for coming back from COVID-19. It's a pure repositioning is what it is.
Well, the value adds are still there, certainly. We feel that as companies come back, that's going to be important to them, make their employees feel safer and feel more comfortable that there is a plan in place to keep people somewhat separated. And then really, obviously, to have a plan you could activate in the future if there were even a heavy flu season, right? You could activate that since
Yeah,
everybody's
but look
so
what you're doing.
effective.
The words that
every-
you're using now in talking to a customer are different than the words that you used to describe your product before.
Right. It's an additional way
You're
they
not
can be
leaning
helped by.
hard into community. You're leaning hard into
Right.
safety.
Yeah,
right?
clearly. Those
All right.
those value adds will come back. And I don't know if Ronnie's had some chance to have some conversations with customers and have some of that too. Ronnie, I don't know
Okay.
if it's something actually working with Ronnie and maybe a couple other groups on an initiative to help provide some of that information related to bringing kind of coaching, guiding companies on what we're hearing out there on how companies are getting back to work.
Anything, thank you, John. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Is there something we need to address in these next few minutes that we have together?
Charlie, this is Rick Walker. I just had one thing I wanted to add that's further to what John was saying about the return to work concept.
Yes.
Those of you who know me know I'm a patent attorney, but I also run a trade association for automotive manufacturers.
Oh boy.
And I wanted to share a document that was shared with me last week from Lear. Lear is a major player in automotive manufacturing. They've done seats and things like that. They published a 51-page playbook last week about returning to work. So John was talking about offices. Well, this is talking about manufacturing environments. And it's things like we're starting to hear on the news now. I mean, do you take everybody's temperature when they walk in? Do you get a disclosure from them? Are they in good health? It's just very thorough, talks about personal protective equipment. So I'll leave the floor with that, but I shared that on the chat box.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be very, very interesting. And Chris Senior, your screen share keeps coming up for us. I keep killing it. All right. Again, I'll ask the question, is there a question that we need to address in these next 2 minutes, actually, or 3 minutes that we have left?
Hey, Charlie, I got just this is Ronnie.
Yeah, Ronnie.
With William Lair. I was just going to follow up. Yeah, I know you asked last week about the PPP loan. I now know at least 3 or 4 customer or clients that have gotten the money. It's in the bank. So that money is flowing. I don't know if everyone else is seeing that or not, but I have talked to a number of them where they actually have gotten funded now.
That's great. That's good information. Yeah. And I've gotten a few people from last week. They have written to me, then the loan, and I just found out one today, but on the low end, I've heard of loans coming in that were for very small organizations at $80,000 to, I just heard one today that was $2.5 million. Okay. So it's a significant amount of funding. And with these PPP loans, we can handle them. My thoughts on this is that we can handle them one of 2 ways. One is we can say, look, it's going to give us a couple of free months of runway, if you will, okay, which gives us a little bit more time, which is what their intention was, a little bit more time to make better decisions on our markets and our companies on where we're headed. The other way to look at it is treat it really as a loan to say, what I need to do is I need to bank the money because I see my market has been in effect gone away, and I need to do a pivot and a relaunch. So where would I get low interest loan money like that in the future? And now I can have it now. Okay. So there's a couple ways to approach it, I think. Anybody have a comment on that? No comments. Nothing.
Hey, hey Charlie, this is Jay Vignali. How you doing? I'm
right.
President of Mainstream Merchant Services.
We got a minute, Jay. You got 60
quick.
seconds.
Just note, I've heard about a new program called Main Street Lending, so check into it for your business. It's
Main Street Lending. Okay.
That's another one that's about to roll out for businesses large and small. They've got some different requirements to get the loan, but they've got it's similar to the PPP, although it's not loan forgiveness.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks, Jay. And I hope what Jay is in merchant services, so he sells through guys that are literally walking the streets, going door to door, selling the credit card processing equipment. And, so I think you said last week that you'd lost 40 to 50% of your revenue just dropped.
That's correct.
Yeah. And you're trying to go digital, but now you've got a situation where I would encourage you got to get out there with those salespeople and actually find out what's going on the ground, okay, to make better decisions to get that 40 to 50% back or to balance your operation properly. So I hope that works. But
Yeah, okay, thanks for that.
thanks for sharing now, and thanks for sharing before. If you would post that, Jay, what you just told me on the chat, that would be helpful for people. Let's see. So it's a little bit past 9:45. I told you we'd end on time. You know, the last thing that we talked about is the first thing I'll mention. I say in our summary here is that make sure you get those PPPs processed. I mean, free money. It's just unbelievable that I would have told you 2 months ago, or any of us would have heard, the government's just going to give you money. And you'd say, right. Well, they are. So get it. Second is talk to your customers yourself. Don't put a filter out there. You know, it's when I talk to people that are just starting their business, I say, no, don't hire a sales guy. You have to be a sales guy. And they're like, no, I'm a developer. I don't know how to do that. Well, you have to learn how to talk to your customer, because if there's a filter, if there's these stages that you have to get through to get the information, it's less and less of the truth, takes longer and longer, which means you're burning more cash and you're making the right decisions maybe too late. So get close to your customer. And what I didn't hear a lot today is people closing business. Michael did say he closed his biggest deal in the last 30 days. I'm hoping that we will hear more of that next week, and because closing business lifts everybody's spirits, okay? But I know that we're going to get through this. I know that you are going to get through it. And so stay close to your buyer, no surprises, quick decisions, quick pivots. Next week, I'm thinking we might talk about cash and burn and runway and how we handle this PPP money that came in most appropriately. Come early, 15 minutes early. I show up for the call. I'd love to catch up with everybody. But in the meantime, know that I'm praying for you, and I know it's going to be a battle. It's going to be tough. So don't be afraid to make decisions. Move quickly. Stay close to your market. Thanks so much for attending today.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Charlie.
You got it.